Hey, Nicole is already 20, so we can get divorced without child support. That's why we should get married soon, Rachel. I heard the familiar voice of my husband James from behind me. As I turned around, I saw a man and a woman sitting face to face at a table a short distance away. Dad. Nicole, my daughter, was the first to notice. On this day, I had taken Nicole to a fancy restaurant to celebrate her 20th birthday and splurge a little. I didn't recognize the woman sitting across from James, but she looked much younger than him. The two seemed oblivious to the stares around them, holding each other's hands tightly. No matter how you look at it, they don't seem like just acquaintances, do they? Nicole muttered in a cold tone. Yeah, it seems that way. And I nodded in agreement. You'll really marry me finally? Wow, thank you. I can finally be free from my aging wife and spoiled daughter. I love only you, Rachel. I swear I'll protect you for the rest of my life. Hey, there's this church I've always dreamed of. Why don't we go see it together this Saturday? Yeah, we can just tell them I have a business trip and make up some excuse. They'll buy it. I want to go on a trip with you again. Unaware that we were listening nearby, James and his mistress Rachel were lost in their own little world. This is kinda gross. I'm going over there for a sec. With those words, Nicole slowly got up from her seat and made her way to James and Rachel's table. Congratulations on your marriage, you too. My name is Misty, and I'm 53 years old. I married my elite businessman husband James in my 30s and have supported him as a housewife for over 20 years since then. 3 years after our marriage, I gave birth to Nicole, and now she's already 20. Time really flies. My life so far hasn't been all fun and games. I lost my mother to cancer when I was in middle school, and after that, with my father's support, I somehow managed to graduate from high school and college. My father also became sickly after turning 70, and a few years later, he passed away and went to heaven. Nicole, who was in middle school at the time, had been doted on by her grandfather since she was little, and I remember her saying to her peacefully sleeping grandfather, "Grandpa, thank you. I'm going to become a hero of justice like you." I'll never forget the words my father left to me and Nicole just before he took his last breath. When I die, I want you to use my inheritance effectively to help others. Those words were so characteristic of my father. With my father's last words in my heart, I resolved to keep living. James was an excellent employee at a major corporation, but he didn't seem to get along well with his strict father, William. Even when he visited his parents' home once or twice a year, he hardly ever tried to engage with his father on his own. "I just can't deal with William," he would always say with a deep sigh while driving back home. "He can be tough, but that's not all there is to him." Of course, when I misbehaved as a child, my father would often scold me, but I also knew his kind side. So, I hoped that the relationship between my father and my husband would improve someday. Well. Honestly, it's a relief to think that I'll be free from that difficult man. After my father's funeral, while Nicole and I were deep in grief, I felt sad when I saw James alone, smiling. "Dad, you can't say things like that. Grandpa was a good person. You got along well with William. Maybe you've even started to take after his personality?" He frowned, looking annoyed. With the absence of his strict father, he started going out and about as if he had lost control. He wouldn't come home after work, and even when he did occasionally, he wouldn't say a word to me or Nicole before heading out again. "Dad, you're going out again? Think about Mom a little, will you?" When Nicole complained, he would get irritated. "Shut up. I'm sick and tired of looking at that woman's face," he would say without even glancing at me before leaving. Eventually, he stopped contributing the salary he earned to the household. Nicole is about to start high school. There will be expenses for tuition, cram school, and whatnot. Surely you understand that much? No matter how many times I pleaded, James wouldn't listen. Instead, I noticed that he had gotten a new car, and brand name receipts started appearing from his pockets. No matter how much I questioned him, "It's none of your business," James would only say. I gradually started to feel that complaining was futile, and I stopped saying anything. A person like that isn't a father. Nicole had completely lost faith in James, and it was understandable. "Don't worry. I'll figure out the money somehow so that you can go to school properly." Since getting married, I had no work experience, and it was financially tough, but I decided to use part of my father's inheritance for Nicole. My father had said to use the inheritance for helping people, but this was for Nicole's future. I'm sure my father would forgive me. It was when Nicole was in high school, during career counseling. "In the future, I want to become a lawyer. I want to become a lawyer and help people in need. That's why I'm aiming for law school." Her eyes were shining as she declared this clearly. "You can do it, Nicole." I decided to support Nicole with everything I had as she started working towards the entrance exams. To help Nicole concentrate on her studies, I carefully moved around to avoid making household noises. I even set my own rules, like calling out to her when she came out of her room to offer her a late-night snack. "Thanks, Mom. But don't worry too much. If you overdo it and ruin your health, I won't be able to focus on studying at all," Nicole said with a wry smile, as I was worrying excessively. Before I knew it, Nicole had grown up into a full-fledged adult, and I realized my daughter's growth in unexpected ways. In contrast, James would carelessly turn up the TV volume to watch sports games or even sing in the bath, despite her studying in her room. The breadwinner of the family worked hard at his job again today. When you become an elite like me, everyone relies on you, so every day is tough. "Hey, Misty, give me a shoulder massage." Can't you be a little quieter? Nicole is going through a tough time studying for her entrance exams right now. Huh? She's a cheeky daughter who talks back to me. There's no way she'll pass the exams anyway. She's your own daughter. And you call yourself a father? You hardly even contribute to the living expenses. You're lucky you have an inheritance. Be grateful to your beloved father. Ha! As I bit my lip in frustration, I heard the sound of the room door being flung open forcefully. "Dad, enough already." Nicole angrily strode towards James. "If you're only going to get in the way, we don't need a father like you in this house. Just leave already." "Fine. I'll leave. I can't be bothered to take care of an incompetent daughter born from an incompetent mother." Perhaps enraged by Nicole's direct words, James stormed out of the house in his old shirt, without even changing. "I'm sorry. I'm fine. In the future, I'll definitely become a lawyer and show that kind of father what I'm made of." My daughter's reassuring words made me feel refreshed. And then, the day of the acceptance announcement arrived. Nicole, who had received the results from the university via email, called me. "Mom, I passed." The moment I heard the news, I sank into the sofa, feeling all the strength leave my body, and I was in a daze for a while. "Hello, Mom? Are you listening?" "I'm sorry, I'm listening properly." Congratulations. Nicole had successfully gotten into the law school of her first-choice university. Moreover, it seemed she was eligible for a tuition waiver, as she had achieved top-class results in the entrance exam rankings. When she came home, I congratulated her again. "Congratulations, Nicole. I knew you would definitely get in." Thanks, Mom. But this is just a milestone. My goal is to become a lawyer and help as many people in need as possible. Nicole said, not content with her current situation and already looking ahead. As I listened to Nicole's words, I suddenly remembered my late father's face, and before I knew it, my tears were flowing uncontrollably. What's up? Did something good happen? He asked suspiciously as he returned home. I had told him in advance that this day was the university's acceptance announcement day, but James didn't seem to remember even that. Well, Dad, I got into the law school brilliantly. When Nicole said this proudly, James didn't even congratulate her. I don't need dinner. I'm going out again right after I take a shower, he said in a cold manner and headed to the bathroom. It's the usual, but it seems to be getting worse lately. I bet he's having an affair or something. This is just my intuition as a daughter, though. No way! That's a bit of a stretch. I laughed it off, but I had been feeling the same way as Nicole's intuition for a while now. James would go out at night, and each time he would wear cologne that he didn't usually wear to work and change into fashionable clothes before leaving. And on this night, too, he was dressed up fashionably from head to toe and giving off a scent of cologne. Where are you going now? It's obviously for work. I'm an elite, so I'm busy. You need cologne too? You weren't wearing it during the day at work, though. It's none of your business. It depends on the client. Don't say anything if you don't know how society works. With that, he ran out of the house as if escaping. It's definitely suspicious. He averted his gaze. He was clearly flustered. Her intuition was probably right. However, we didn't have a single piece of evidence to pursue it. After that, Nicole started living alone in a cheap apartment to attend university. Studying is important, but you also need to relax and take a breather once in a while. When Nicole came home to visit, I advised her based on my own college days. Don't worry. I'm trying to take breaks in my own way. The other day, a friend took me to a cheap and delicious restaurant, and then to a botanical garden. Is this friend a guy? Does it matter? Nicole, who usually spoke calmly, showed a bit of hesitation, which was rare for her, but I decided to laugh it off. Come to think of it, Nicole was about to turn 20. It wouldn't be strange for her to take appropriate breaks at her age. Remembering that Nicole's birthday was just around the corner, I made a suggestion. Why don't we eat out as a family for once? It's your 20th birthday, so it might be nice to have something a little fancy and toast with some alcohol. That sounds great. When I mentioned this to James, he remained expressionless as usual. If you want to go that badly, you two can go. I'll be busy with work that day too. I don't have time to waste like you guys. He added unnecessary comments that he didn't need to say and left. Well, it's the usual, but let's just ignore him and enjoy ourselves. Nicole said with a carefree smile, so I let it go. You're right. I laughed. For her birthday, I made a reservation at a fancy restaurant. When we entered, the staff guided us to our reserved table. At first, I was nervous about the unfamiliar atmosphere of the high-end restaurant, but gradually, as I heard the chatter of other customers in the store, I felt my heart relax along with the pleasant background music. Are you sure? Don't you think this kind of fancy place is out of our league? Even if it's your 20th birthday, it's no different from your previous birthdays, right? Then should we cancel? No way. Since we're here, let's enjoy the delicious food. That's my daughter, honest and good. I'm honored to be praised. Even from a mother's perspective, I think she has grown into a mature and beautiful woman. I had heard rumors that several men had approached her at university. To think that she used to be such a small and cute child. When she was little, James and I often took her to family restaurants. Nicole always ordered from the kids' menu because she wanted the toys with the menu.
What? Is there something on my face?
I denied it, still smiling. It's nothing. I just thought it was a little sad that Dad wasn't here.
Let's forget about him today. Besides, we came all the way to eat French cuisine, so we have to enjoy it, or it'll be a waste.
As if shaking off my melancholy mood. You're right. I nodded.
Well then, should I ask about your boyfriend?
What's that about? Change the subject. We were having a good time with such trivial conversations, but...
Hey, she's 22, right? We can get divorced without child support now. Let's get married right away.
I heard a familiar male voice from behind me. When I turned around, I saw a couple sitting face to face at a table a short distance away. Dad. Nicole was the first to notice. I didn't recognize the woman sitting across from him, but she was much younger than James. The two were holding hands, unconcerned about the gazes around them.
No matter how you look at it, they don't seem like just acquaintances, right?
Nicole muttered in a cold tone.
Yeah, it seems that way.
I nodded in agreement.
Really? Wow, thank you. I love you, James. I can finally be free from my aging wife and nagging daughter. I love only one person in this world, Rachel. I swear I'll protect you for the rest of my life.
James said those embarrassing words boldly.
This is kinda gross.
I also felt like covering both of my ears.
Hey, there's this church I've always dreamed of. Why don't we go see it together this Saturday?
Yeah, we can just tell them I have a business trip, and they'll buy it. I want to go on a trip with you again. Unaware that we were listening nearby, James and his mistress were lost in their own little world. Watching the two of them laughing loudly without any shame, despite other customers being present, made me feel embarrassed for them. As I stood there, unable to move due to anger and embarrassment, Nicole stood up. Nicole's expression was surprisingly calm, and seeing that, I felt like something had snapped inside me too.
I'm going over there for a sec.
With those words, Nicole slowly got up from her seat and made her way to James and Rachel's table.
Congratulations on your marriage, you too.
When Nicole called out cheerfully, James didn't seem to realize it was his daughter at first, and as he turned around,
Thank you.
He showed a softer smile than I had ever seen him show in front of us. However, the moment he realized that the person who had called out to him was none other than his own daughter, he exclaimed,
Nicole! What are you doing here?
And fell over with his chair in shock. Are you okay, Dad? Did you hurt yourself anywhere? Nicole asked in a gentle tone and extended her hand to James, whose mouth was wide open.
Why are you here?
James slapped Nicole's hand away, stood up on unsteady feet, and looked around. Then, when he saw me, he said,
I knew you were here too. Don't tell me you've been following me all this time?
It's just a coincidence. I told you, didn't I? Today is Nicole's 20th birthday, so we're eating out. I chose this restaurant because I thought we should splurge a little for once. I replied calmly, stood up from my seat, and stood next to Nicole. The woman who was James' mistress, Rachel, said, You too, could you be James' wife and daughter? Despite being caught in the act of cheating, Rachel was smirking triumphantly for some reason. I'm Rachel. James has been taking care of me both professionally and privately.
Oh, professionally and privately, huh? Well, thank you for always taking care of my husband.
Rachel, are you planning to marry my father?
That's right. James always tells me. It's not his wife or daughter that he loves. It's me.
James, who had been listening beside us, seemed to have become defiant.
That's right. Rachel is kind and beautiful. And above all, she's much younger than you. I love Rachel more than you too.
I heard Misty is a terrible wife. James always tells me. Even when he comes home tired from work, you don't cook, do laundry, or clean for him, right? It's only natural that James got fed up with you.
That's not true. My mother has been selflessly serving our family for years without a single complaint. It's my father who goes out without even eating the meals my mother makes.
Nicole, who had been insulted along with me, showed her emotions for the first time that day. Nicole, was it? I've heard about you too. Despite inheriting the blood of the highly educated elite James, you're a good-for-nothing daughter who's satisfied with just getting into a third-rate university. I was more shocked by the insults directed at Nicole than the ones directed at me.
Did you really say something like that? This child has been desperately working hard to be useful to people in the future, and she got into her dream school.
I'm just stating facts. I mean, isn't it true? You only managed to get into a third-rate university using your father's inheritance. I bet you're not even studying properly now and just playing around. The moment James said that to my face, I made a decision.
I understand. If that's how you feel, there's no point in living together with you anymore. Let's get divorced, just like you wanted.
When I said that, James seemed convinced that things were going according to his plan and exchanged smiles with Rachel.
And one more thing, I'll be taking appropriate compensation from Rachel over there as well. You're joking! Why should I have to pay you compensation? I mean, isn't it obvious? Stealing someone else's husband is not ethically acceptable. I was just invited to dinner by James, my boss at work. Do you have any proof that I'm his mistress? Having dinner with your boss is pretty common in the world.
She started making desperate excuses. When I admitted, "You're right about that," Rachel looked relieved. "Well then, how about this?" I grabbed James' smartphone while he was off guard and checked his message history and saved images. I see. Last month, you and James abandoned work and spent the whole day at a hotel. A week after that, you two went on a day trip. Looks like you had quite a lot of fun.
Give it back. This is a violation of privacy.
You know, I've been suspecting your affair for a while now and gained some legal knowledge. I thought a day like this might come. I'm glad I studied up. Looking around, I saw other customers and staff giving us strange looks. Everyone, I apologize for disturbing your meal. Wanting to avoid causing any more trouble for the restaurant, I quickly paid the bill and said to James in a low voice, "Well then, we'll continue this conversation later." Before leaving the restaurant with Nicole. A few minutes after we got home, James and Rachel came chasing after us. James had a sly smile on his face, as if he had a clever idea. "Did you come up with some scheme while riding in the taxi?" When I asked in exasperation, James and Rachel exchanged glances and laughed sarcastically.
Fine. I'll divorce you. But you have to give me a cut too.
I wondered what James meant by a cut.
You inherited a large sum of money from the late William, right? I'm telling you to share that with me. If we're getting divorced, it's only natural to have a division of property, isn't it? No. Ever since you two started hating me, I've been comforted by Rachel every day. So I've been giving Rachel lots of presents out of love and gratitude. Well, it's fine as long as I can get half of the inheritance. No way. The reason you haven't been contributing money to the household was to give it to that woman? And because of that, you didn't pay a penny for Nicole's tuition or college entrance exam fees? Are you saying she became a sacrifice for that woman? Are you saying Nicole became a sacrifice for that woman? Don't say such nasty things like sacrifice. It's up to me to decide who I love and who I spend money on, isn't it?
James said it without any shame and ostentatiously embraced Rachel. Even though I had acquired some legal knowledge, I was still an amateur after all. I didn't know all the professional details, so when he brought up the topic of shared property, I couldn't retort. Seeing me at a loss for words, unable to argue back, James had a smug smile on his face.
Don't tell me you were planning to monopolize William's inheritance all by yourself. We're married, so of course I have a right to it too. Besides, you'll probably just waste it anyway. What do you mean, waste it? I won't waste my father's inheritance. You're already wasting it. Nicole's tuition. You used William's inheritance for that, didn't you? What else would you call this but a waste of money? It's not just the inheritance. I've been keeping this from you, but I've actually been investing too. I didn't want to rely solely on my father's inheritance.
When James found out that I had been making some profit from investing, he smirked.
That's subject to division of property too. We'll divide William's inheritance and the investment profits. Of course, I have a huge advantage since I'm the one working. You'll barely scrape by, I suppose?
Rachel, who was next to him, laughed along with James. I bit my lip in frustration, but there was nothing more I could do. Then Nicole lightly patted my shoulder and said, "It's okay, Mom. These people won't get their way. I'll teach them that reality isn't so sweet."
Hey. It's pointless to act tough after coming this far. You've essentially lost. If you're joining the adult world, you should graciously admit defeat.
Sorry, but Grandpa's inheritance doesn't become marital property.
What?
James, who had been laughing loudly, fell silent as if time had stopped, his mouth agape.
It seems like you were counting on Grandpa's large inheritance, but the inheritance was passed down to Mom alone.
So unlike other shared property, it won't be distributed to you, Dad.
That's ridiculous. You're lying. You think you can trick us because we're amateurs when it comes to the law, don't you?
Nicole sighed in exasperation. Then we can have a showdown if you want. Why don't I consult with the law school professor I'm always indebted to? They might introduce me to an excellent lawyer too. Should we go to court?
Wait. There's no need to make such a big deal out of this.
James, who had been a successful elite company employee for a long time, probably thought that if his affair led to a lawsuit, it would tarnish his career. It was too late to panic now, and even though everything was his own fault.
I understand. I'll give up on the inheritance. I'll agree to the divorce too. I'll divide our shared assets and pay the alimony properly. Of course, I'll make Rachel pay alimony too. So please, just spare me the lawsuit.
James pleaded. The one who couldn't stand the situation was Rachel, James' mistress, not us.
You've got to be kidding. I absolutely won't pay any alimony. I only dated James because I thought he was rich in the first place. He bought me expensive bags, rings, and even took me on trips and to delicious meals. He gave me such a luxurious life, so I just assumed he was wealthy. That's right, I'm one of the victims who was deceived by this man too. Well then, shall we file a lawsuit?
Nicole laughed.
That's what I want. Stop it. Rachel, give it up. If we go to court, we have no chance of winning. Please, Rachel, calm down. I'm begging you, please accept it.
James desperately restrained Rachel, who had lost her mind and started rampaging.
Well then, please excuse us for today,
James said, even though it was his own house, and dragged Rachel's body out as she desperately resisted. I wonder if Dad will stay at a hotel today?
Let him do what he wants. It's already late today, so I'll go to the courthouse tomorrow to get the divorce papers. I also need to find a job and a place to live. I wonder if there are any good listings.
After that, James and I finalized our divorce. Well then, thank you for everything up until now. I wish you happiness for many years to come, I said with a smile and waved to James, but it seems James and Rachel's relationship deteriorated to the point where it couldn't be repaired. According to rumors, even at work, the two of them would have huge fights every chance they got. Or rather, Rachel would curse at James without regard for who was watching. Naturally, the fact that they were having an affair became known to those around them, and James couldn't endure the cold stares from his colleagues and subordinates, eventually being forced to quit. It's all over. I have no one but Misty now. Despite everything that's happened, I really do need you too. So please, come back to me. Give me another chance. Saying that, James came to my workplace where I had started working, but it was so troublesome that I called the police without hesitation.
This is a matter between husband and wife. Outsiders have no right to interfere.
However, our divorce had already been finalized, so James was mercilessly taken away by the police officers who had rushed over. James didn't end up getting arrested, only receiving a stern warning, but he didn't learn his lesson and this time barged into the university Nicole attends. There too, he was pathetically turned away by the security guards, and James, still unable to give up, went to the apartment where Nicole lives. However, the moment he opened the front door, there stood a sturdy man. Surprised, James reportedly ran away. At this time, the person visiting Nicole's room was Kevin, a member of the rugby team at the same university who was dating Nicole. Nicole was in the back room, so she didn't notice, but later Kevin told her about the incident. She burst out laughing and couldn't stop, and she called me to share the story too. Having lost his source of income and depleted his savings, James found himself homeless, living on the streets. One day, as I was walking past the park, I caught a glimpse of a disheveled James diligently carrying cardboard boxes. I tried to leave the area quickly, hoping he wouldn't notice me. At that moment, a female acquaintance happened to call out to me. "Isn't that man your ex-husband?"
No, not at all. I don't know him.
I denied instinctively and fled from the woman as well. Time passed, and Nicole brought Kevin, the man she was dating, to our home. "This is Kevin. Nicole and I are in a relationship with the intention of getting married," he introduced himself. Kevin might have been a bit too serious at times, but he seemed sincere, which was what mattered most. As we reminisced about my late father, Nicole declared,
"You know, I'm definitely going to pass the bar exam and become a lawyer. I want to become a lawyer so I can help people in need. I want to be a hero, just like Grandpa."
Suddenly, I felt a gaze upon me and turned around. My father's photograph was smiling gently, as if approving of her aspirations. One afternoon, I received a call from an unusual person. It was Elizabeth, my best friend who had stolen Matthew, my ex-husband, from me 10 years ago. Reluctantly, I decided to answer the phone. Then, without much of a greeting, Elizabeth dropped a bombshell.
"I had twins. I'd like an $18,000 baby shower gift, please."
To think she had the nerve to ask me for such a thing after taking Matthew from me. Such feelings began to surface, but thanks to Joseph, who was looking at me with concern, I came back to my senses. That's right. I have Joseph now. Elizabeth, receiving no response from me, pressed for an answer. I replied to her with a cheerful voice. Sure. I'll bring it over with my husband, the bank president.
What?
I could hear Elizabeth's pitiful voice. I continued.
I've remarried. Why didn't you tell me? That's obvious, isn't it? I didn't want you to steal him too. We're best friends, aren't we?
Elizabeth screamed about being heartless, but I couldn't help laughing. And slowly, I replied to her words.
The one who betrayed first was you.
At that, Elizabeth was at a loss for words. I unilaterally ended the call and explained the situation to Joseph beside me. And so, I decided to proceed with my plan for revenge. My name is Linda, a 45-year-old housewife. I live a happy married life with my husband Joseph and our 2 children. It's my second marriage to Joseph. Joseph was a single father with 2 children already. Meeting Joseph, I wanted to support him and decided to marry him. Joseph is very kind and family-oriented. Despite being busy with work, he helps with household chores and childcare. I loved Joseph for that. On the contrary, I still consider my first marriage a failure. I met my ex-husband Matthew online. We matched around the time I turned 30 and married because we got along well. But after marrying, I realized Matthew and I had completely different hobbies and values. But it's too late for regrets. Still, in the beginning, both Matthew and I tried to meet each other halfway. The dark clouds over our marriage gathered about a year after getting married. It all started when my best friend visited our new home. This visit would plunge me into the depths of misfortune.
Hey, can I come over to your place?
That was Elizabeth, my best friend. She couldn't attend our wedding due to her schedule, so she wanted to celebrate at our house at a convenient time.
Would it be okay to come over when your husband is also there? I want to say hello.
I'd love that. Please come. Elizabeth was my best friend since high school. She was the first to speak to me when I entered. And despite everything, I loved her dearly. So, I readily accepted Elizabeth's request. Little did I know, this would lead to such a disaster. The following week, Elizabeth visited my new home with lots of gifts.
Nice to meet you. I'm Elizabeth, Linda's best friend.
Nice to meet you. My wife always talks about you. Elizabeth smiled and greeted Matthew, then followed him into the living room. I walked behind them and headed straight for the kitchen.
Oh, I'd like some tea.
Ah, then I'll have the same. Matthew, usually a coffee person, opting for tea. From the kitchen, I sighed as I looked into the living room. Do you have tea? Asking me while still fixated on Elizabeth, Matthew didn't even look my way. Elizabeth has always been beautiful, and I understand why one might be captivated by her beauty. But it's another thing for a husband to be enthralled by another woman. Thinking this, I replied,
No, we don't. You usually drink tea. Elizabeth, do you drink coffee?
I can, but... Elizabeth looked at Matthew after saying that. I like Elizabeth, but honestly, I don't like that gesture of hers. Because whenever Elizabeth does that, most men end up doing whatever she wants. As a special treat, why don't you go buy some for her? Predictably, I sighed at those words. Elizabeth, looking a bit troubled, wouldn't say she'd settle for coffee. Reluctantly, I went to buy tea. After purchasing it at the nearest supermarket, I was walking back home when my mobile phone rang. It was Matthew.
Sorry, can you also pick up a cake on your way back? What? But...
Matthew cut off the call without waiting for my reply. No matter how many times I called back, Matthew didn't answer. He must be too caught up in their conversation. With no choice, I stopped by the bakery before heading home.
I'm home.
Welcome back. When I entered the living room, the window was open. They were both in light clothing. Perhaps it was too warm. I thought they should just turn off the heating as I spoke up. Was it hot?
Yeah, it was.
You could have turned off the heating.
Yeah, that's right. Should have done that.
Matthew seemed somewhat flustered. There was nothing unusual in the living room, and Elizabeth was smiling at me. I felt something unpleasant but pretended not to notice and laid out the cake.
Here you go, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Elizabeth thanked me in a cheerful voice. Then, she chose a cake slice and began eating next to Matthew. Watching this irritated me. However, Elizabeth has always been a person who is close to others, so I thought it was pointless to say anything and tried not to think about it.
Hey Linda, Matthew is really wonderful, isn't he?
Do you think so? I replied bashfully to Elizabeth's comment. Then, with a beautiful smile, Elizabeth continued talking while resting her hand on Matthew's knee.
Yes. He's really handsome and above all, a banker, right? That's impressive.
Thank you. You're wonderful too, Elizabeth.
Oh, that makes me happy.
Matthew is a banker who had recently been promoted. When Elizabeth praised him for that, Matthew smiled very happily. Though there were supposed to be 3 of us, it quickly became just the 2 of them. Feeling out of place, I silently ate my cake and moved to the kitchen.
Matthew, can I come over again?
Yes, of course. Hey, Linda. Finally hearing my name, I looked up. That's when I noticed Elizabeth leaning against Matthew for the first time.
Is it okay to come over, but maybe keep a bit of distance? Are you jealous, Linda?
Don't be too clingy with Matthew, he's gonna run away.
That's not what I meant.
My response grew stern at Elizabeth's teasing, and Matthew frowned.
Linda, that's rude to Elizabeth who came all the way here. Apologize. What? Apologize.
Matthew had never raised his voice before. Surprised, I widened my eyes.
Matthew, it's okay. I'm not angry, right, Linda? We're best friends after all.
Sorry. Reluctantly apologizing, Elizabeth looked very pleased, and Matthew also looked at Elizabeth kindly beside her. Seeing this made me feel terrible. Elizabeth stayed for dinner that day and was glued to Matthew the entire time. And finally, she hugged Matthew before leaving.
Elizabeth is beautiful, isn't she? Did you enjoy flirting with my best friend? What, are you jealous? No.
After Elizabeth left, my stern expression made Matthew instantly sour.
What? It's not jealousy, but envy. Just because Elizabeth is beautiful, that's not good. That's not it. Stop it. I'm going to bed. Take care of cleaning up.
Saying that, Matthew immediately went to the bedroom. Left alone, I cleaned up while shedding tears. And from this day forward, Matthew's behavior started to become clearly strange.
I don't need dinner today. What? Again? Got a problem with that?
It's not that, but... Matthew began eating out about half of the week. He claimed he was busy with work, but judging by his cheerful demeanor, it seemed unlikely. I had a bad feeling, but tried not to think about it too much.
Make sure to iron my shirts properly. Don't embarrass me.
Okay. From the day Elizabeth visited, Matthew began to treat me arrogantly. It was incredibly sad and very painful. I once asked Matthew why he was acting like that. But Matthew just glared at me and didn't take me seriously.
Don't worry about that and just hurry up with the housework.
That was all he said, without offering to help anymore. I would send off Matthew, who was eager to go out on days he didn't need dinner at home, with a heavy heart. After continuing this life for a month, Elizabeth suddenly came to our house on a holiday. Linda, I have something I want to talk about.
Elizabeth, I told you to wait, didn't I?
But I have to. The conversation unfolded at the entrance, and I realized my bad premonition had become reality. Since when? Matthew answered awkwardly, almost mumbling.
Since the day Elizabeth came over.
Hearing that, everything went dark before my eyes. Then Elizabeth spoke to me. I thought it was wrong because he's your husband. But I've fallen in love with Matthew. Matthew consoled Elizabeth, who was on the verge of tears. Honestly, I had a hunch this would happen since the first time I introduced them to each other. But I just looked the other way. Are you going to divorce me?
I'm sorry. but I've fallen in love with Elizabeth. I'll pay the alimony, so please don't ask her for it.
Matthew's words hit me like a blow to the head, igniting a surge of anger.
Why do you get to decide that? I'll demand compensation from both of you.
Fine. I'll pay for Elizabeth's share too.
Do as you please.
Screaming at the sight of my beloved defending his affair, Elizabeth trembled. Matthew hugged her protectively. I felt like I was going mad. After that, I quickly divorced Matthew, received compensation from both, and moved. Hearing rumors that they got married immediately, I started a new life while drowning in sorrow. Fortunately, I found a job quickly. As I got used to work, I found a new boyfriend and gradually stopped thinking about Matthew and Elizabeth. My new boyfriend, Joseph, was a very kind person. Joseph had a divorce history and 2 children. Despite being busy with work, he was fully committed to parenting, and I fell deeply in love with him. Joseph loved me with all his heart. He introduced me to his children early on, and they got along well with me. After dating for about 3 years, we got married. I received a lot of blessings from those around us, retired to support him, and became a housewife. I spent very happy days, without ever remembering Matthew and the others, enjoying a smooth sailing married life. However, trouble can strike unexpectedly. One afternoon, I received a call from an unusual person. It was Elizabeth, my best friend who had stolen Matthew from me 10 years ago. Reluctantly, I decided to answer the phone. Then, Elizabeth, with hardly any greetings, dropped a bombshell.
I had twins. I need an $18,000 baby shower gift, please.
To think she dared ask that after stealing my happiness. Dark emotions welled up, but thanks to Joseph, who looked at me worriedly, I regained my senses. That's right. I have Joseph now. Elizabeth, who kept pressing for a response while I remained silent. I replied to her with a bright voice.
Sure. I'll come with my husband, the bank president. What?
I could hear Elizabeth's pathetic voice. I continued.
I've remarried. Why didn't you tell me? That's obvious, isn't it? I didn't want you to steal him too. We're best friends, aren't we?
Elizabeth screamed about being heartless, but I couldn't help laughing. And slowly, I replied to her words.
You were the one who betrayed first.
At that, Elizabeth was at a loss for words. I unilaterally ended the call and explained the situation to Joseph beside me. And so, I decided to go ahead with my plan for revenge. I discussed the plan with Joseph. Originally, I had forgotten about the plan I made right after the divorce because my relationship with Joseph was so joyful. But if they were going to bring it up again, that's a different story.
Go all out, that's fine.
Yeah. Thank you. I nodded in gratitude. Then, I simulated the reunion with Elizabeth set for the next week over and over. And on the promised day, I headed to the address Elizabeth had given me and rang the doorbell.
Welcome. Are you Linda's husband?
Yes, that's right.
I didn't know you got married again. You could have told me. That's rich coming from you, after what you did.
Elizabeth's face clouded over for a moment at my words, but she still kept her smile and ushered us inside. The interior of the house, larger than the one Matthew and I had lived in, was scattered with branded clothes and bags here and there. All of them women's, so they must belong to Elizabeth.
You still like branded things, huh?
Oh, yeah. But actually, I prefer more modest things, you know? Elizabeth answered, oddly directing her response to Joseph, although I was the one who asked. That reminded me of how she was with Matthew, and I felt an urge to shout right then. Joseph stopped me.
Elizabeth, Linda asked you the question, not me. I don't particularly want to know. I see.
Elizabeth's momentum was broken, and she looked foolish. Just seeing that made me feel better.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Joseph said with a smile, reassuring me he's my greatest ally. Then, entering the living room, we found Matthew lounging, who looked up in surprise at seeing me.
Linda, why are you here? Why? Because Elizabeth invited us. Huh? Elizabeth, why did you invite her?
Matthew looked confused and even more so when he saw who was behind me.
The president. Why with Linda?
We're married. He's my husband.
You got married again?
Matthew kept looking back and forth between me and Joseph, perplexed. Joseph's brows furrowed at Matthew's rude behavior.
Do you have a problem with my wife? No, not at all.
Matthew straightened up as he answered, looking pathetic. Elizabeth seemed to think the same, sighing dramatically. But that wasn't the end of it with Elizabeth.
Nice to meet you, Linda's husband. I'm Elizabeth, Linda's best friend.
Elizabeth leaned towards Joseph as she said this, but he avoided her. However, Elizabeth didn't give up.
You're handsome. What's your name? I have no intention of telling you.
Ah, that's cold. Come on, it's okay, right? Elizabeth reached out and touched his arm. In an instant, he knocked her hand away.
Ouch! What are you doing to my wife?
Matthew glared at Joseph in response to Elizabeth's small cry. Then, Joseph, looking utterly exasperated, turned to Matthew.
Your wife was the one who suddenly touched me. Yeah, but don't you feel sorry for Elizabeth? Not really. Rather, I think someone who's married yet touches other men so easily should reflect on their frivolity.
Elizabeth turned red with Joseph's words. Apparently very offended, she glared at Joseph. Then I spoke up.
Elizabeth, trying to take someone else's man again, huh?
What? Did you think I hadn't noticed? I pulled out a photo from my bag and scattered it around. The photo showed many men. Elizabeth's face turned pale at the sight.
What's this? These are photos of Elizabeth's ex-boyfriends.
Well, Elizabeth is beautiful, after all.
Yes, but that doesn't give her the right to repeatedly steal others' partners.
Matthew also turned pale, recognizing the situation, but then he picked up a photo as if something caught his eye.
Hey, is this a recent photo? Yes, that was just taken yesterday.
Upon hearing that, Matthew glared at Elizabeth and thrust the photo at her. The photo showed Elizabeth walking arm in arm with a young man.
Why do you have this? Hey! Weren't you supposed to be staying at your mom's house because she was sick yesterday?
Matthew raised his voice. Elizabeth tried to make excuses, but it was clear Matthew wasn't buying any of it.
We're getting a divorce. I'm done with you. Why does it have to come to this?
As the two began to argue, I intervened.
The conversation isn't over yet.
I showed them another photo, causing Matthew's face to turn pale.
What is this? This shows you, doesn't it?
Matthew frantically shook his head at Joseph's words. But the photo clearly captured Matthew's face. With incontrovertible evidence before him, Matthew slumped down, defeated.
Please, anything but dismissal. I can't just overlook someone who has embezzled money. But...
Indeed. Matthew had been skimming funds from the bank. We discovered this soon after starting our preparations. Joseph had hired a detective, and it came to light. Matthew's department had been having frequent discrepancies in their accounts, and Joseph, hearing rumors of Matthew's lavish lifestyle, became suspicious.
As a banker, not only did you hurt and discard my wife, but you also tarnished the bank's reputation. You're disqualified. I'm sorry, I just needed the money. I'll return it. If that were enough, we wouldn't need the police.
At Joseph's words, Matthew fell to his knees, disheartened. Elizabeth looked down on Matthew as if he were trash.
You said your salary had increased recently, but that was a lie. It's because you're always splurging on brand name goods. It's your fault for not bringing home a bigger salary as a banker. You're the worst. How dare you? You bitch!
Matthew glared at Elizabeth, who seemed to think she was in a superior position and was unfazed by it. I handed Elizabeth a document.
People in debt shouldn't be talking like that. Where did you get that? You didn't borrow from a reputable source, so the interest has ballooned. Tough times ahead for you.
I said this to Elizabeth before making a call. After finishing the call, I turned back to Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, you've always been popular, right? So what if I was? But did you know, behind your back, people actually disliked you?
Elizabeth looked at me, not understanding. Indeed, Elizabeth had been quite unpopular during our school days. Despite her attractive appearance, which naturally made her popular with boys, her bad attitude and habit of stealing others' boyfriends made her resented by the girls. As I explained this, Elizabeth, seemingly unaware, trembled.
You say you've been popular, but really, you were just disliked and kept at a distance. That's a lie. As proof, nobody invited you to their weddings.
Elizabeth seemed to realize something at my words. I had thought of her as a friend and invited her to my wedding, thinking she wouldn't make a move on my partner. Elizabeth couldn't attend my wedding due to her circumstances, but if she had, I might have been criticized by my other friends. The thought made me shudder now. However, Elizabeth seemed too preoccupied to notice my reaction. That's a lie. I was popular and beautiful, Elizabeth muttered quietly, sounding frankly eerie. After a while, she looked at Joseph and tried to lean on him. Hey, Joseph, I'm beautiful, right? Joseph silently avoided her. Infuriated by his reaction, Elizabeth reached out and grabbed him.
Why are you avoiding me?
Because it was disgusting.
Disgusting. Yes, you're like a witch.
Elizabeth lost all composure and began to flail about, her hair flying. Seeing this, I thought Joseph's words were quite apt. Joseph continued firmly.
My wife is more beautiful than you. I will never be swayed by you. More beautiful than me? Impossible. No, it's a fact. In terms of both beauty and purity of heart, my wife is the best.
Tears welled up in my eyes at Joseph's words. However, Elizabeth was infuriated at being told I was more beautiful.
More beautiful than me? Are you blind? If anyone is at fault here, it's your brain. What?
Joseph continued to provoke her, and Elizabeth grew increasingly angry. As this back and forth went on, the doorbell rang. Seeing the visitor, Elizabeth turned deathly pale.
No! No way!
Well, then good luck with your debt repayment.
I don't want to.
As Elizabeth screamed, the front door opened, and intimidating figures entered. They took Elizabeth away, flanked by them, somewhat forcibly. Matthew watched, trembling, making no move to help his wife. Watching him, I realized how right I was to have divorced him back then. Thank you for falling for Elizabeth. It seems my thoughts showed on my face. Because Matthew glared at me.
What's so funny?
What?
Nothing. Just thinking this is what self-inflicted means. If you hadn't been here, I could have been happy.
No, that wouldn't happen.
Both of you have too much debt.
Unable to argue, Matthew gritted his teeth in frustration. I handed him a thick envelope with a smile.
What's this? Congratulations on your baby. The $18,000 Elizabeth asked for. Aren't you going to show me the kids? The kids are at my parents' today. $18,000. Yeah, that means you want the compensation money back, right?
Indeed. The $18,000 was the exact amount of compensation Matthew and Elizabeth had paid me. With the debts piling up, Elizabeth probably intended to use it to pay off her debts. The reason she left the children at Matthew's parents was that she never intended to show us the kids in the first place. I then dropped another bombshell.
Well, it would be good if those kids really are yours. What do you mean? Oh.
Realizing what I meant, Matthew's face turned pale. If Elizabeth had been seeing her affair partner before getting pregnant, there was a high possibility he was the father. Matthew seemed to have realized this.
But Elizabeth said they look like me. She would say that, wouldn't she? To keep it hidden. All your words could be lies too. I'm not so idle to lie. If Elizabeth hadn't called me, I wouldn't have bothered with this ever again.
As I kept cutting off Matthew's words, his momentum faded. I pressed further by handing him a document.
What's this? Old test results. Test results? Yes. I had the hospital issue them again.
The documents I produced were from a gynecological examination Matthew had undergone while we were married. It was written there.
It said natural conception would be difficult, so when I heard about the twins, I remembered this.
Matthew was stunned looking at the test results. I had intended to tell him the results after the examination, but Elizabeth came over the day before I could.
Those kids aren't mine. It's highly likely. Why now? Is this revenge?
Matthew's obvious question was met with my smile. Then Joseph spoke up.
You're to be confined to your house from tomorrow. We'll send further notice. Don't expect to avoid dismissal. Please wait. Anything but dismissal.
Still pleading, even now. Joseph responded with a cold gaze, before making a phone call. Hearing the name of the person on the phone, Matthew lost all color.
I've instructed them to thoroughly investigate you.
Matthew slumped down, pale, and whispered, "It's all over."
Yes, your career as a banker is over.
Not just as a banker, but with debts piling up, his life seemed over too. That must be something Matthew understood best. Lacking the energy to glare at me, Matthew began to apologize to Joseph, hands on the ground.
I'm truly sorry. Please, anything but dismissal. That's impossible, as I've said.
Bluntly rejected by Joseph, Matthew then turned to me. Is he that desperate to remain a banker? I was somewhat impressed. Matthew apologized to me while making a bold request.
Linda, I'm truly sorry. Can you forgive me now? Because you think if I forgive you, you'll escape dismissal? That's part of it.
Matthew's confirmation was met with my sigh. Then I stated clearly,
even if I forgive you, it won't erase the fact of embezzlement. Besides, my husband doesn't mix personal feelings with business. But
Matthew wore an expression of despair. Then, leaving behind Matthew, who became silent, Joseph and I left the scene. Later, I heard that Elizabeth sent over divorce papers. Matthew signed them and seemed to have given up custody too. The twins Elizabeth bore were indeed the children of the man she had an affair with, and I heard they became the talk of the bank. I received an apology from Matthew's parents. They had been distant during the marriage, but it seems they were just watching from afar. I heard Matthew is now holed up in his room at his parents' house. As Joseph declared, the bank fired him. Life seems to be very tough, with demands for the return of embezzled funds on top of debts. He is reportedly working multiple jobs day and night, surviving on sprouts every day to fend off hunger. He once came to visit in shabby clothes, but was stopped by security before he could even reach the entrance. I might be heartless for not feeling pity for Matthew's downfall. But, upon reflection, it seems only natural considering everything he did. Elizabeth's parents were acquaintances from before, so they were shocked when I told them the truth. It seems they didn't know she was meeting Matthew based on lies, nor that he was my ex-husband. They apologized many times, making me feel sorry. They offered to pay for the trouble caused, but I declined since Elizabeth's parents were not to blame. Elizabeth was taken away by debt collectors, and her whereabouts are unknown. Since a letter arrived from somewhere near the sea once, she might still be alive. The twins were being raised by Elizabeth's parents, but being elderly, they couldn't keep up and recently placed them in a facility. It might seem sad, but it's probably better than growing up beside Elizabeth. I've come to realize just how much I've come to dislike Elizabeth. Joseph is working hard as a bank president, and his work keeps him late. But he keeps in touch, so I'm not worried about infidelity at all. Meeting such a gentleman has made me happy, and thinking back, the difficult divorce seems like it was meant to bring me to him, which is strangely gratifying. He recently hired a new secretary and wants to host a home party. Watching him prepare the barbecue gear makes me feel very happy. Lately, I've been into taking day trips with the kids. It's mostly nearby, but it's refreshing and fun. Joseph wants to join, but he's too busy now, so I'm enjoying the time with just the three of us. The older one is already a teenager but still calls me mom and shows affection. The younger one hugs me and says he loves me, making every day very happy. And now, a new life is growing inside me. Despite the high risk of being a first-time mother at 45, I want to carefully raise this precious life we've been blessed with. The kids are looking forward to having a much younger sibling, so we plan to decide on the baby's name as a family of 4.
We're not marrying her off if it's a girl. You're getting ahead of yourself.
Let's not find out the gender until the birth. We accepted Joseph's suggestion, so we still don't know whether we'll have a boy or a girl. Thanks to that, we spend every day imagining our future with either a son or a daughter. There were hard times, but my current happiness overwrites them, making me very happy now. I feel like the rest of my life will surely be bright. That's what I thought as I gently stroked my belly.
Vivian's room looks different. Did you just realize that? Aren't you a bit slow? Or perhaps you're getting dementia. Please, don't be a nuisance to us.
Rocky and his wife, Ava, laughed as they saw me standing frozen in front of my own room. These people are devils. They're trying to drive me out of the house. I had a bad feeling about this since I arrived, and it turned out to be true. Ava's words made Rocky laugh with a sneer as well. However, they seem to be under one misunderstanding. They think the mortgage on this house is already paid off. If so, I must use this to my advantage. The disdain they show me will only last for now.
Are you really okay with this? Even if I'm gone? Of course. Did you think you were needed?
Their laughter will only last for now. My name is Florence, 54 years old. I gave birth twice in my early 20s and have gone through a divorce. I raised 2 sons as a single mother. My eldest son's name is Rocky, 30 years old. He's married with children. My granddaughter is truly adorable. Her name is Vivian. She just turned 3 and will enter preschool next year. Since my younger son, Joseph, has also left, I've decided to live freely and went ahead to buy a house. I finished raising my children relatively early, so I've been working hard. That's why I had some savings. However, due to a long period of being poor, I've gotten into the habit of saving. My sons didn't seem to know I had money when I bought the house, and both were surprised. I won't be a bother to you too. I can take care of myself. To this, Rocky said to me,
Mom, I have my own family now and can't take care of you. You need to act your age and not be a bother, okay?
Are these the words of a son I struggled to raise? More than sadness, I felt irritation at this moment. I won't be a bother. After all, I'm still young.
Young. Well, I won't get involved, just so you know.
Yes. Probably, Rocky is preemptively saying he won't take care of me if I get dementia or become ill. I vowed to keep my body and mind healthy. I don't want to be taken care of by someone who says such things. Rocky has always had a not-so-great personality. Joseph is the silent type who doesn't say much. Harmless, but I've had my worries, and perhaps I paid too much attention to Joseph, making Rocky the type to cause trouble. It was cute when they were kids, but it's pathetic for an adult to keep saying unnecessary things. I wonder how he even got married. When he first said he wanted to marry someone, I almost cried. I was happy that someone would marry such a son. The first time Rocky brought home the woman who would become his wife. Nice to meet you. My name is Ava. Ava was already looking around the house before greeting. At that time, we were living in a small apartment. It was quite old but well maintained, and I thought it was fine, but Ava's impression was different.
Really, just as you said, an old house.
I couldn't believe my ears. To say such a thing when becoming part of the family was shocking. However, Rocky, without reprimanding her, just laughed.
That's why I said, let's greet quickly and go back.
Wait a minute. I've prepared a meal.
No way. We can't eat in such a dirty place.
We came here because you wanted to at least say hello. We're not staying for a meal. Saying this, they left. I cried eating the leftover meal alone. It felt so empty and frustrated. I couldn't understand how someone could behave like that towards me at the first meeting. I only felt anger towards Rocky for not stopping her behavior. After the wedding, Rocky and Ava completely disappeared. They must be enjoying their life, I thought. I didn't want to meet Ava after our first impression, so it was a relief. One day, I received a message that they had a child. This was truly a joy. My first grandchild. I went to the hospital immediately and was happy when I held her. It was only for a short time, but it was a happy moment. Grandchildren are special, as they say, and she truly was. Her name seems to be Vivian.
Vivian.
When I called her name, she seemed to react a little. I must live long enough to see Vivian grow up properly. I remember making that resolution in my heart. But it wasn't easy to get to see her. I should have been prepared for it, but the reality of not being allowed to see her was sad. Hearing that Ava's parents were meeting her made it even more shocking. Perhaps it's true that the parents on the woman's side are more likely to see their grandchildren. No, it's just that my relationship with my eldest son is particularly weak. But I wanted to see her at least once a year. With that slight hope, I made a call.
Please don't come today because we're going out.
Then, when can I see you?
It's been a year already. You don't need to see her, right?
Ava's mom is enough to be Vivian's grandmother.
How can you say that?
That was the first time I truly felt alone. Fortunately, I was working, so I could talk to my colleagues about it. Everyone sympathized, saying it was too harsh, and I felt rescued. One colleague advised me, now that I was alone, to forget about such a family and do things I had been holding back on. That might be a good idea. First, I wondered what to do and spent my days fretting alone at home. Then, I saw a feature on TV about someone who moved to a place rich in nature and started living a refreshed life. I decided that was it for me, switched to fully remote work, and bought a house in the suburbs. I informed my sons about it. Then, Ava showed interest and came over with Vivian. I was delighted with Vivian's unexpected visit. Changing my environment had immediately led to something good.
This place would be good for Vivian's environment too.
I felt a sense of discomfort as she said that while looking around the house. Since then, Ava started coming over frequently, asking me to look after Vivian. Florence, you're happy to see Vivian, aren't you?
Yes, but isn't it too frequent?
You were so eager to see Vivian. I'm fulfilling your wish, and now you're complaining? Rocky and Ava spoke as if leaving their child with me was for my sake. Babysitting a few times a week turned into every day. I had hoped to enjoy my alone time, but this made it impossible. I was getting sleep-deprived, balancing work and babysitting.
Florence, Vivian is here today too. Ava, I think I told you yesterday, but I'm a bit sick. Oh, I have plans to meet with friends today. It's too late now.
Sorry, but you'll have to take Vivian with you.
It's okay, your friends will understand.
How irresponsible of you to say that. I wanted to tell them how irresponsible it was to dump babysitting on me every day, but I was too sick to argue. In the end, Ava left for her outing and didn't come back until 10 p.m. Vivian was at an age where she wouldn't listen to me. It was really tough. That day, they came to pick her up just before 10 a.m. Taking advantage of my silence, late-night pickups became frequent. Sometimes, they even left Vivian to stay overnight.
Please, Rocky, talk to Ava. Huh? No way. After all, you seemed happy about it. I can't handle babysitting every day. I have work, you know? How selfish. You asked for this.
When did I ever wish for daily babysitting? It's a mystery. After that conversation, an incident occurred. Suddenly one morning, a moving company brought a ton of stuff.
What's going on? I didn't hear anything about moving.
We were worried about you and thought about living together with Vivian, so we decided to move. Rocky's family had decided to move in. And what audacity in their words. I firmly refused to live together, but I didn't want to trouble the movers, so we agreed to talk after the move.
It's impossible for 4 people to live here. It's fine. It's spacious enough. Besides, I like it here.
Ava sat back on the sofa as if it was her own house and said that to me. Vivian was caught between me and Ava, looking at us. So, I couldn't say anything more. I had dreamt of a free-spirited life alone, but now I was starting to live with Rocky's family. Despite being a housewife, Ava did no household chores.
I'm busy with childcare,
she said, making me prepare 3 meals a day. Of course, they didn't give me any money for groceries. If this continues, I'll just be doing whatever they say. Since being at home meant I'd be left with the babysitting duties, I started leaving the house early in the morning to go to work. Even though I had switched to remote work, I was commuting. Florence, weren't you supposed to be fully remote? Sorry, I'm just really busy right now. It was true that I was busy with work. I had been chosen to lead a new department that was being created. After a long day of overtime, coming home past 11 p.m., something seemed off about the room. I was too tired to think much of it and headed straight to my room.
What? This is...
Nothing of mine was left in my room, which was now overflowing with Vivian's things. Vivian was sleeping peacefully on the bed. It's turned into Vivian's room. Standing dumbfounded at the entrance, I heard laughter. Turning around, Ava and Rocky were standing side by side, smirking at me. I couldn't grasp the situation. Where are my things?
We got rid of them.
They had kept only the furniture and appliances they liked. Almost everything of mine was thrown away. Really? They hardly brought in any money. We tried selling them at a recycle shop, but were told they were in bad condition. It was embarrassing.
The little money we got from it, we'll keep.
That's when I realized. These two had been planning to drive me out of this house from the beginning.
You're out early in the morning and come back late. You don't need a house, do you? You're trying to kick me out? Did you just realize? Aren't you a bit slow? Or perhaps you're getting dementia. Please, don't be a nuisance to us.
This woman is a devil. How could someone do something so cruel? It's unimaginable. I gave up on staying and fighting with Ava and her cohort.
So, I should take this as you're kicking me out?
Yes. We'll be living here. Think of it as your last act of filial piety and leave. I hadn't received any filial piety. Why should I be the one to perform it? But I kept silent.
Are you really okay with this? Even if I'm gone? Florence, did you think we needed you? The most you were useful for was babysitting.
The next day, I left the house as if I was being driven out. I hesitated about going to Joseph's house, but considering his reserved nature and the possibility of him cohabiting with someone, it would be unfair to burden him. Reluctantly, I decided to stay in a business hotel near my workplace. That night, Ava and Rocky apparently celebrated driving me out. Florence, you're not thinking of doing anything strange, are you?
Don't worry, she's thick-skinned.
Alone in the business hotel, I pondered over my situation. The next day, I explained my circumstances to my company and took some time off. I was worried about causing trouble for my team, but my colleagues were very supportive, which comforted me.
The house, can you transfer it into my name?
Rocky called me with such a request right away. I was actually about to contact you about that. You're sure you want to transfer it?
Don't make me say it over and over. We talked about this when you left, didn't we? Hurry up. Understood.
I proceeded with the transfer as requested. A few days later, as expected, I received a call.
Florence, what is this about? Are you talking about the loan? You tricked us. Let's meet and talk this over.
Tricked them? They were the ones who drove me out. Knowing a confrontation was inevitable, I headed to Ava and Rocky's place. Vivian was left with Ava's parents. They were clearly ready for a fight. Florence, who is this person?
A lawyer.
I had brought a lawyer in case anything happened. Ava and Rocky were clearly surprised. Having a lawyer meant they couldn't manipulate the situation as they might have wanted. Their dismay was evident.
A lawyer? Why would you bring someone like that? Because you might make up some false accusations. It's better for both of us to have a third party present. Don't bring outsiders into this. If that's your attitude, then there's no point in talking. I'm leaving.
As I was about to leave, Ava nudged Rocky. Reluctantly, Rocky stopped me, and the discussion began with the lawyer present.
We didn't know there was still a loan to pay.
You drove me out, and now you're saying you didn't know.
Why are you laughing?
Ava stood up angrily. Rocky stopped her and pointed to a voice recorder on the table. Ava sat down again but glared at me the entire time. It was clear from her expression that she was furious.
The monthly payment for this house's mortgage is $1,800. Good luck paying it together. $1,800. Mom, how do you have so much money? After you two became adults, I started working more, cut down on living expenses, and began investing.
I never wanted my sons to feel poor just because they had a single mother. So, I endured personal hardships to ensure they didn't feel deprived, allowing them to do what they wanted within our means, even if we couldn't afford luxuries. That's why I honestly didn't have much savings. Then, a coworker advised me on the importance of saving for the future. Luckily, I was only 43 when I sent my sons off to college. I could work a lot. So, I started a side job, worked double, and increased my income. Once I had saved a bit, I invested it. After 10 years, I had accumulated a significant amount. After my sons were independent, I decided to use the money I earned for myself and boldly took out a mortgage to buy a house, only to have it taken from me.
Now that I've already transferred the ownership, you two will be responsible for the remaining mortgage payments. Since you took it upon yourselves to take over, it's your responsibility. That's not logical.
Ava's face turned red with rage. Then, the lawyer explained that I had no obligation to pay, and that disposing of someone's property could be a crime. He also mentioned that if they insisted on making me pay for a mortgage I wasn't living under, they could face legal action for that too. Rocky and Ava, not well versed in the law, started to panic. Clearly, they didn't want to go to court. We understand. We'll figure out the mortgage on our own. Please don't sue us.
Good, as long as you understand.
Ava grimaced in frustration.
By doing this, you're no longer a mother or anything to us. Don't ever show your face to us again.
Rocky hurled those words at me in a rage. Since moving out, I hadn't seen much of my son anyway. After all the unpleasantness and being driven out, I had no feelings left for Rocky. Feeling relieved at the thought of not having to see their faces again, I said.
I have no desire to see you again either, so this works out for me.
Rocky looked surprised when I said that, probably thinking I would never abandon him.
This wasn't supposed to happen.
I heard Rocky's voice as I left through the front door. Months later, Ava called to apologize. Florence, I'm so sorry. Please come back. We can't possibly afford the payments.
Even if you apologize, I'm not coming back. I've moved to a new house.
Where is it? Can I come now? I couldn't help but laugh. What is this woman so desperate for?
Ava, do you really think I'd tell you where I am?
Please. We're going to be bankrupt at this rate. That's not my problem. Besides, Ava could just work. It's wrong to rely on someone else without working yourself.
You could work.
I have started working. But then Rocky got fired.
What? Why?
That surprised me. According to Ava, Rocky had been working late for overtime pay. One day, he stole money from a coworker's wallet while they were in the bathroom. Please don't report me to the police. Rocky had begged his coworker. Even though it was just $50, the coworker didn't file a police report, but did report it to their boss, resulting in Rocky's dismissal. Ava was furious that Rocky had jeopardized their future.
What are you doing for just $50? Just work yourself. I am part-time. Get a full-time job. I have a child. Part-time work is more flexible.
They apparently argue like this almost daily. With Rocky unemployed, the mortgage payments weren't waiting. I'm terrified of the payment due dates. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
And you think it's okay to ask for help from someone you kicked out? You told me never to show my face again. So, I can't help you.
That was just something Rocky said in the heat of the moment.
Words said in haste can have irreversible consequences.
Ava fell silent. She seemed to be crying. She sounded truly desperate. But I have no obligation to help. I can become a devil too. Sorry, but please don't contact me again. If you do, I'll block your number. I said that and unilaterally ended the call. It was right after that. As I was leaving the office for lunch with my colleagues, Ava, Rocky, and Vivian were standing there. My colleagues quickly noticed and showed their concern for me. Go ahead without me. I told my colleagues and approached the three of them. What do you want? I was surprised at how cold my own voice sounded. Then Rocky began to apologize deeply.
Stop this, not here.
I took the three of them to a nearby bench. I didn't want Vivian to see her father apologizing so deeply to her grandmother. I was wrong. Please, help us.
One thing, didn't you say never to show up again?
That was. Rocky's ears turned red, likely from the shame of his actions. And damaging his own pride.
No need to apologize anymore. Just don't ever appear in front of me again.
Am I not your son anymore?
I don't consider you my son anymore. That's too harsh. Florence, that's really harsh.
Do you have the right to judge me? Ava fell silent. After being ridiculed, treated as a nuisance, used, and driven out by my own son, I couldn't think of him as my son anymore. I realized they didn't understand how much they had hurt me. Explaining it to them would be pointless. They wouldn't recognize the abnormality of their actions. It's better to let them face the consequences of their actions.
You're still Vivian's grandmother, right?
I expected this kind of turn when they brought Vivian. Vivian is innocent. But if being involved meant being used like this, I decided to give up on Vivian. Using Vivian won't work.
I won't extend my hand to you again, nor will I meet you. I plan to live in a different world now. But you said you wanted to see Vivian. Don't use Vivian. Solve your own problems. You brought this on yourselves. Are you okay being alone?
That must have been Rocky's last attempt. But I'm not alone anymore. I noticed my colleagues had come back and were standing behind me.
If I didn't have them, I couldn't have done anything about this situation. I'm not alone, so I'm strong.
Let's stop this. Rocky. I'm embarrassed. Rocky hung his head weakly. Ava, pulling Vivian's hand, left Rocky behind and walked away.
Well, our lunch break is almost over, so we're going. Goodbye.
Leaving Rocky behind, I left with my colleagues. Rocky seemed to stand there in a daze for a while, but was eventually escorted off the premises by security. Eventually, Rocky and Ava couldn't make the mortgage payments and fell behind. Ignoring the demand letters led to the financial institution demanding immediate full repayment. Panicked, Rocky and Ava consulted with the financial institution. The house was put up for auction. Due to its location, it didn't sell for the desired price. Maybe because I had customized it to my liking, which might have limited its appeal. Desperate to sell, Ava lowered the price on her own. It sold for about half of what it was purchased for. This left them with a substantial debt to pay off.
What have you done? You did this without consulting me. I thought it was better to sell it quickly. Why do you always act without thinking? This is why I can't stand people who haven't worked in society. What? I'm taking care of the child. If you helped a bit, I could work too.
Eventually, they were left with a large debt and no home. Their credit cards stopped working, and they couldn't get new ones. Unable to rent a house, they temporarily stayed with Ava's parents, who kicked them out because Ava didn't contribute to the household or work, using childcare as an excuse. Somehow, Ava's father managed to get them an old apartment, but a tough life awaited them. Ava's family refused to help any further. Ava's father even said not to come back until they had paid off their debts. Vivian ended up being taken care of at Ava's parents' house. I was worried about Vivian, so hearing that brought me relief. With Vivian gone and needing to work, Ava looked for jobs but couldn't find anything. So she ended up cleaning bathrooms at a shopping mall. There, she accidentally ran into a friend from her school days and was laughed at, leading to a humiliating experience. Ava came home crying, and Rocky's cold attitude only added to her stress. Rocky and Ava fought almost every day, often getting scolded by their neighbors because of the noise. Both of them actually wanted a divorce, but Rocky couldn't afford to lose his home, and Ava couldn't handle the debt repayment on her own. When they looked into divorce once, they found an article saying debts could be divided, which made them give up on the idea. Ava had no one to consult with, so she relied on internet articles. These messages were left on my mobile phone's voicemail. After they contacted me again, I decided to block their numbers. Rocky and Ava are still burdened with a huge debt, working every day for repayment. They must regret taking over my house, but it's too late for regrets now. As for me, after staying in a hotel for a few days, I received a call from Joseph out of the blue. He had moved and was calling to give me his new address. When I told him about what had happened for the first time, he was very upset that I hadn't consulted him and invited me to stay at his place. What surprised me was how spacious it was. I knew Joseph had started a business, but I wasn't aware of the details. The company had grown enough to afford a house without me realizing. Now, I'm enjoying my time living with Joseph. He's about to get married, so I'll have to move out. But he surprised me by gifting me a house next to his. He apologized for it being a small house. But I loved the design, it was exactly to my taste. I never knew you understood me so well. I was moved because I thought the reticent Joseph wasn't interested in me. A few days later, I met his fiancée, who was wonderful. She welcomed me living next door. They also welcomed me to live next door. Actually, it was her idea to build the house next to theirs. I'm looking forward to my new home and the new family next door. Even though I lost Rocky, experiencing Joseph's kindness has made me happy.
Get out of the way, you're blocking the pregnant lady,
Abigail said, gently stroking her belly. Her face held a mean-spirited expression that made you wonder, shouldn't pregnant women have a more gentle demeanor? I looked over at my husband, Daniel.
Go sleep in the storage room,
he chimed in, echoing Abigail. Watching Daniel side with Abigail, my love for him cooled off. Yet, a part of me still felt a pang of sadness. All right then, I replied. Daniel happily took Abigail's hand in response. Abigail gazed back at him, utterly smitten. The sight of them together washed away my melancholy, replacing it with a rising anger from within. I'll be out by tomorrow.
Sure. Oh, why don't you find somewhere else to stay tonight? This is mine and Abigail's house now, Daniel said, elated.
I nodded slightly and left the house. They won't be laughing for long. Leaving the house, I allowed myself a smile, imagining what comes next. My name is Grace. A 46-year-old housewife. Before marriage, I worked hard, but that was over 20 years ago. Now, I enjoy my days doing household chores and savoring coffee, just an ordinary middle-aged lady. My hobby is investing, which I've done since before I got married, recently enjoying significant dividends that allow for luxury hotel lunches and spa visits. Daniel, 43, is a salesman for a major company. He's definitely put on some weight, and honestly, his scent has become rather strong recently, but as a salesman at the top of his game, he sure has a way with words. Despite looking like a big, burly guy, I've always loved him. I've thought about encouraging him to lose some weight for his health, but there's a certain adorable quality to him that made me think maybe it wasn't necessary. We have a daughter together, Scarlett. Scarlett has inherited Daniel's facial features, and being slim, she has the beauty of a model. Not just in looks, but academically and athletically, she excels, bringing home top grades and being selected for national competitions, all while being humble and hardworking. Both Daniel and I dote on her, often to the point where others say we're overprotective. Daniel has a bit of a weakness for younger women, but he chose me, an older woman, and has always prioritized our family, so I've come to accept his occasional wandering eye. We lived in a second-hand apartment bought around the time Scarlett was born, which has been aging, leading to discussions about increasing the maintenance fees. Amidst this, Scarlett decided to do room sharing near her university. At the same time, my relatives offered us an uninhabited house to inherit, prompting Daniel and me to decide on rebuilding it and moving in. Little did I know that this move would lead to such a turn of events with Daniel. While our old apartment had 4 rooms, our new home has only 2. It's smaller than before, but designing it as a single-story home considering our elder years has made it very comfortable. One of the 2 rooms, a combined study and guest room, can be divided into Scarlett's room and a study, making 3 rooms if she comes back. Since moving, Daniel's nights have become late due to work engagements, and he often finds excuses to go out on weekends. Being sensitive to smells, sleeping next to Daniel, who reeks of alcohol and tobacco, has been a challenge even with separate beds. Thus, despite having a shared bedroom, I've been sleeping in the study since we moved into the new house. When it came time to send out moving announcements, I took the initiative, sending letters far and wide. Daniel isn't great with these sorts of things, so I handled sending letters to the in-laws' house and his relatives on his behalf. Since both my parents have passed away, I only sent brief notices to relatives and friends on my mom's side. I haven't kept in touch with anyone from my dad's side of the family. And that's largely due to my sister, Abigail. Abigail is my half-sister, 14 years younger than me. She was born to my dad's second wife shortly after my mom died when I was in my first year of middle school. Abigail was already 2 years old when they remarried, so I initially thought it was a marriage where both parties already had children. My dad passed away in an accident along with his second wife about 5 years after they got remarried. At the funeral, relatives on my dad's side mentioned that he and his second wife had been childhood sweethearts, and everyone had expected them to marry. They blamed my mom for coming between them, saying she proposed marriage through her company connections, leaving no choice for my dad but to marry her, casting his second wife into the shadows. Despite my memories of my parents being happy, it turns out my dad had a child with his second wife behind the scenes. That revelation shocked me more than anything. At the relative's house, Abigail's favorite foods were always served. She wore brand clothes, had the biggest room to herself, and was taken to any place she wanted immediately. In contrast, I was burdened with preparing meals, doing laundry, cleaning, had my part-time earnings taken away, and my room was a small storage space under the stairs, where I was begrudgingly provided with the bare minimum after asking. By the time Abigail reached the middle grades of elementary school, she had learned about my mom from relatives and had come to look down on me. I had to juggle multiple part-time jobs to finally move out of that house. With such experiences, it's no wonder I harbored no fond feelings for Abigail, and I hadn't told her about my marriage or having a child. A few weeks after moving in, I was enjoying a coffee when the doorbell rang. A man's voice said, "Delivery." The screen showed someone looking down. Wondering if Daniel had ordered something, I opened the door. And I was surprised by the person who was there. "Abigail? What are you doing here?"
It's been a while, sis. I just showed up.
The person in front of me was indeed wearing the hat seen on the doorbell camera, but it wasn't a delivery person, it was my sister, Abigail. Abigail slipped past me, frozen in shock, and made herself comfortable on the sofa in the living room. I hurried after her and stood towering in front of her, looking down.
If you knew it was me, you wouldn't let me in, right? That's why I used a recorded voice from before. That's awful, deceiving me like that. Oh, scary!
Abigail feigned fear at my raised voice. But it was clear she was acting, evidenced by her smiling face.
I've come back home.
What? Confused by Abigail's nonsensical remark, I responded coldly. With a bright smile, Abigail began to explain her sudden visit.
Well, you never tell me where you are. I got married, but my husband's always on business trips, and it's boring. And when you get pregnant, it becomes harder to move around, right? Everyone said I should come and have you take care of me. Go back. I have no intention of dealing with you, let alone take care of you. But I've already come here planning to have you look after me, so it's impossible.
I was frustrated with Abigail's unapologetic attitude. Hearing her mutter, "Thief's daughter," under her breath, my anger reached its peak.
Get out! I never want to see your face again.
What's all the noise about? It can be heard from outside.
Daniel,
Surprised by Daniel's unexpected return, I was at a loss for words when Abigail stood up and went over to him. Then she wrapped her arm around Daniel's. Daniel didn't shrug her off and seemed pleased with her presence. "Oh, Abigail's here? Welcome."
Daniel, sis is being mean. I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to stay with Daniel until the baby is born, but is that not okay?
That's great. If you don't mind, you're welcome to stay as long as you like. I was stunned by the conversation between Daniel and Abigail. Not only that, but Abigail was clinging to Daniel, their proximity resembling that of lovers.
Daniel, what's this all about?
You see, Abigail's had it tough, hasn't she? Why be so harsh?
Jealous of your cute sister?
I felt despair at Daniel's words. I had told Daniel about my family situation before we got married. Yet, he said such things. Look, you're not using your bed in the bedroom anyway, so it should be fine, right?
Really? I can sleep in the same room with you, Daniel?
Sleeping next to you sounds like it'd bring sweet dreams.
Daniel, really?
Their conversation, like that of a close couple, gave me a headache. Ignoring me, the two of them went to the bedroom, still arm in arm, to put away their luggage. However, when they didn't return after a few minutes, a bad feeling led me to peek into the bedroom. There, I found them embracing each other.
Living with you feels like a dream come true. The baby's happy, too. To live with Dad.
Abigail's words filled me with despair. Daniel is Dad? What does that mean? Daniel, looking pleased, nodded while embracing Abigail.
We should leave the sister to babysit and go on a date.
She's only good for that. I watched them kiss through the tears, peeking through the door gap. From that day on, they treated me like a housekeeper. While obeying them, I began to gather evidence little by little. I discovered more shocking truths about our household, leading me to consider divorce. One day, Abigail, sitting on my favorite sofa, summoned me. She spoke as if she owned the place.
Get out of the way, I'm pregnant.
Abigail said, gently rubbing her belly. Shouldn't pregnant women look more compassionate? Abigail's face was filled with malice. I looked at Daniel.
You should sleep in the warehouse,
he said, agreeing with Abigail. Seeing Daniel side with her, my love faded. Still, I felt a bit sentimental. All right then. Daniel happily took Abigail's hand in response. Abigail looked at Daniel adoringly. At that moment, my sentimental feelings vanished, replaced by anger from the bottom of my heart. I'll be out by tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, why don't you find somewhere else to stay tonight? This place is now mine and Abigail's.
I nodded slightly and left the house, thinking they won't be laughing for long. After leaving, I smiled, imagining what comes next. I stayed in a hotel, planning my next steps. I arranged for movers to come the next day and planned to go to the office early before heading home. Excited about the future, I had trouble falling asleep that night, but feeling liberated, my heart felt lighter. The next day, I went as planned to get the divorce papers and headed home. The movers were already there, looking confused. They said the house was empty when they arrived, with just one cardboard box left at the entrance. At the entrance was indeed a small cardboard box with a note saying, "Please take whatever you want." Inside were my treasured books and cosmetics tossed carelessly, with books damaged and pages torn. At the very back was Daniel's wedding ring, fueling my rage. Entering the house, I found the bedroom in disarray with sheets, pajamas, and underwear scattered about, making it clear what had happened after I left.
Please take all of these items,
I said, closing the bedroom door and leading the movers to the study. Daniel doesn't read, so the study was filled with books collected by me and Scarlett. Since I only had a few outfits to begin with, I decided to take this opportunity to buy new ones. When I entered the living room, I found a letter on the dining table. The letter mentioned that Daniel and his companion were going on a prenatal trip abroad for 5 nights and 6 days. It instructed me to keep the house clean during their absence and to prepare for the divorce immediately upon their return. I was dumbfounded by their selfishness. However, this made my plan much easier to execute, so I secretly thanked them in my heart. After having the movers take all my belongings, I removed my wedding ring and left it in the kitchen. Leaving the ring behind, I exited my home. I debated over where to move but ended up buying a place near Scarlett's university that happened to be for sale. The new house was very comfortable, and I enjoyed my solitude for the first time in a while. On the day of their return, my mobile phone kept ringing incessantly. I knew who it was without even looking at the screen. Without diverting my eyes from the book I was reading, I answered the call. Yes.
What the hell is this about?
Daniel blurted out without any greeting, his voice frantic. The reason was clear, but I responded casually. What do you mean?
Don't play dumb. The house is gone.
I couldn't help but laugh out loud at Daniel's statement, hearing him panic on the other end. After my laughter subsided, I replied to Daniel. Why?
Well, it's my house, so if I'm not living there, I don't need it, right? We were living there. What about our stuff?
Don't worry. I've kept everything as is in a storage unit. I'll send you the location and the pin in a message.
Don't mess around. Bring everything back now. Give us our house back.
That's funny. The land and the house are in my name. I used the money I made from investments to build it, not a dime from you. It seemed Daniel finally remembered the circumstances under which the house was built. When we were deciding whether to remodel or rebuild, Daniel said he had no money and told me to do whatever I wanted with my own money. So, I took care of everything from the paperwork to the payments, building the house to my liking. But Daniel, seduced by Abigail, had completely forgotten about that.
Please, it's for your niece or nephew that's about to be born. Find us a house. It's unfair to Abigail.
My niece or nephew?
I'd love to meet someone who can adore the child of the husband who cheated on them. What are you saying?
Did you think I wouldn't notice? Daniel had believed he hadn't been caught, but his confident demeanor quickly changed. I pressed on.
I've been aware of your affair with Abigail since the day she barged into our house, and I've been collecting evidence since then.
Evidence?
The baby camera Abigail had me buy.
It's been recording. You didn't notice, did you? Daniel let out a small sound. The baby camera was the first thing Abigail demanded when she settled in. She had already done her homework and requested a high-end camera that costs $1,000. Of course, I initially refused, but after being yelled at by Daniel, I reluctantly bought it. However, the camera setup was left entirely to others, and neither Daniel nor Abigail had touched the camera since its purchase. So, I secretly activated it, capturing everything in the bedroom. True to its price, it even captures clear images in the dark, including both of you in bed and what you were doing under the covers.
Snooping around like that is in poor taste. I was merely testing the capabilities of the baby camera. Still better than a man who cheats with his wife's sister, I'd say.
Daniel seemed unable to respond. To Daniel, I cheerfully said, "Oh, and I think I left the mailbox untouched, so you might want to check that."
The mailbox?
Yes, it should have arrived by now. I could hear Daniel checking the mailbox over the phone. Then, the next moment, I heard his surprised voice. "Oh, good. It looks like it arrived, the certified mail. Make sure you take care of the payment, okay? Hey, there's one for Abigail too. Are you going to leech off your sister?
What are you talking about? You two betrayed me, so this is a compensation claim. Family or not, it doesn't matter.
But no excuses.
We'll go through lawyers from here on out.
Bye.
Wait, Grace.
I hung up, ignoring Daniel's call. My phone kept ringing off the hook, but I ignored it. I had already signed up for a new mobile phone over these 5 days, so the old one was just for keeping evidence. Ignoring it caused no problems. Daniel kept calling for about an hour but eventually gave up. He seems to have complained to the lawyer, who later reported to me with a tired voice. The next morning, I got a call on my mobile phone from Dad's side of the family. Since I hadn't given them my contact information, it was probably Abigail who had whined to them, planning to scold me. Reluctantly, I answered the call while recording it on my new phone. Yes?
How could you throw out a pregnant Abigail like that? Apologize to her immediately and provide a new house as compensation.
Why should I apologize to a woman who slept with my husband? Whatever Abigail has told you, she should be the one to apologize. And she should be the one to pay compensation.
This is why the daughter of a thief.
Right. Just like the child of a dad who betrayed mom and had a child with his affair partner. You end up with someone weak-minded enough to sleep with her half-sister's husband, growing up just as poorly. Oh, and please tell Abigail to stay away from me from now on. Though, I doubt she'll have the luxury to do so. The relative was still complaining, but I hung up. Feeling surprisingly refreshed after venting everything I had been holding back. I contacted the lawyer to summon Abigail and Daniel. I wouldn't close this chapter of revenge until I saw their frustrated faces. The meeting at the law office then took place. Before me were Abigail, looking sulky, and Daniel, appearing disgruntled. It seemed they hadn't learned their lesson even after all that had been said.
I never thought my sister would turn out to be such a miser. I'm shocked. If I knew she was so greedy, I wouldn't have married her. I was deceived.
Hearing Abigail and Daniel's self-centered comments, I moved beyond anger to sheer disbelief. I laid the divorce papers in front of them and also presented another document, a marriage registration form. As for the compensation, I might consider reducing it if you sign this.
If signing this is all it takes to reduce the amount, then give it here,
Daniel said, snatching the pen from me to sign. Abigail also signed, laughing. I put the documents in a file and then smiled brightly. I'll make sure to submit this to the office. Did you forget, sis? I'm already married. It won't be accepted anyway. Well, don't worry. You're single now.
Huh?
Abigail looked at me with a dumbfounded expression. I rephrased it for her, making it easier to understand. Yesterday, the divorce mediation finalized our divorce.
I didn't know about that.
Well, you threw away the mail without checking it. There were several letters, orders to appear in court. I got a message from your husband saying the divorce was finalized and now he's filing to deny paternity of the child.
That can't be.
While Abigail stood there dumbfounded, Daniel seemed oddly pleased. No wonder, since he could marry Abigail until after her remarriage prohibition period ends. To Daniel, who seemed quite content, I smiled sweetly. It must be tough for you, having to support a child that isn't yours.
What? The child in her belly is mine.
Oh, you didn't know? Poor thing. The child Abigail is carrying is actually from her real boyfriend at the club.
Club guy?
When Daniel turned to Abigail with force, she awkwardly looked away, indicating my statement was true. Seeing this, Daniel's face turned pale, realizing the truth.
Good luck with the compensation payment and raising someone else's child.
I know it'll be tough.
Grace, let's start over. I was wrong. After all, there's Scarlett.
As Daniel changed his tune, the door to the lawyer's office burst open, and a woman walked in. Daniel turned pale the moment he saw her.
Scarlett? Dad, you're the worst. Hurting Mom like that. I'm cutting ties with you. From now on, I'll live with Mom. You and that loose woman can just disappear.
Scarlett had never spoken so harshly before, leaving Daniel frozen in shock. Meanwhile, Abigail, insulted, was red-faced and trembling.
Who are you calling loose? Sleeping with someone other than your husband, then my husband, and also your real boyfriend from the club. Which part of that isn't loose? Are you insane?
Scarlett's fierceness left Abigail speechless. I delivered the final blow to Abigail. Just so you know, he's frugal but never manages to save money because he spends it all on young women, so be careful.
What? But what about the house, the car?
Oh, those? All mine. Bought with my dividend income. We used them as a married couple, but after the divorce, we're strangers. A man with a $3,000 salary couldn't afford that car anyway.
$3,000? Even though he works for a big company?
Apparently motivated by money, Abigail was frozen in shock. Daniel, too, was looking down, embarrassed by the revelation of his low salary.
Well, good luck with everything.
I said that and left with Scarlett, entrusting the rest to the lawyer. The dinner I had with Scarlett that night was genuinely enjoyable and delicious, the best we had in a long time. Later, I filed the divorce papers. When Abigail's remarriage prohibition period ended, I also submitted Daniel and Abigail's marriage registration. The witness section was signed by me and Abigail's ex-husband. Daniel was fired for repeatedly cheating with Abigail during work hours and misappropriating travel expenses for their affairs. Now he's struggling, working part-time jobs to make ends meet. Abigail seems to be taking care of the child but cries daily, having been dumped by her club boyfriend once the money ran out, unable to tolerate her unbearable personality. Abigail admitted she targeted Daniel because she couldn't stand that I got married and had a child before she did, wanting to ruin it. She thought she could get money from both her ex-husband and Daniel by claiming the child was Daniel's and leave the care to me while she visited her club boyfriend. After all this, even her relatives have abandoned her, forcing her to reluctantly take up part-time work, which didn't last long due to her attitude. Now, she, Daniel, and the baby live cramped together, barely scraping by. Scarlett is enjoying her university life. I was surprised to learn her roommate was her same-sex partner, but seeing Scarlett happy made me think it was all right. As for me, I continue to live off my dividend income. After the divorce, I've been in touch more with Abigail's ex-husband, who's been asking me out to dinner. It seems that Abigail and her ex-husband were married through their parents' introduction, pushed heavily by Abigail herself, I later learned. Yet, I wonder why she was dissatisfied with him, to the point of curiosity. I received a message from him earlier on my mobile phone, saying he has something important to discuss, making me feel somewhat restless today. Despite telling myself not to expect too much, my face blushed like that of a girl in love as I sat in front of the dresser, applying makeup.
Mom and Dad are taking me overseas. This is just going to be luggage, so I'll leave this behind with you. It might be hard for you, but it's a good way to kill time, right?
Kristen said with a smirk, implying her superiority to Sophia. Kelly, who married into an elite family, always boasted about her daughter Kristen. On the other hand, my family, with Sophia the same age as Kristen, come from a normal family. Influenced by Kelly, Kristen grew up flaunting her financial comfort and academic excellence, always emphasizing how different she was from Sophia. For Sophia too, this summer vacation is crucial, as she's preparing for college entrance exams. Kristen, caught up in her own excitement, left a pile of school assignments at our house and went off to her overseas trip. However, Sophia, the recipient of Kristen's spite, decides to take action. My name is Mary. I'm a working mother in a regular household, with my daughter Sophia facing exams this year. Every morning, I make breakfast, wake up Sophia and my husband Harold, hand them their lunches, and we all head out. Life was supposed to continue like this, day after day. But it quickly changed. Now, my life is filled with struggles. It's because of my sister-in-law Kelly, married to Adam, who works in a globally expanding company. Kelly, who married a rich, and her daughter Kristen, have become a source of stress. Sophia and Kristen, being the same age, were inseparable like twins during their childhood. Living not far from each other's homes, family gatherings, especially during long vacations, meant they were always together. But as Kristen started attending various classes and tutoring, their playtime significantly reduced. Gradually, we lost touch with Kelly's family, and by the time we met again, Kristen, maintaining top grades at a prestigious private school, had become Kelly's pride. In Adam's absence due to frequent business trips, Kelly enjoyed her life as an elegant housewife. With Kristen, nearly guaranteed a scholarship through school recommendations due to her grades, you could say their whole family was sailing smoothly. However, for Kelly and Kristen, with too much time on their hands, our family working parents and Sophia studying hard for general exams became an easy target for mockery. When did Kelly's assertive personality twist into something unpleasant? Her straightforward and cool attitude was lost, replaced with sending us unpleasant, boastful messages. It wouldn't matter if I was the only target. But on weekends, they started visiting, ostensibly to play with us. Bringing expensive confectionery as a pretext, clearly to disturb us, especially Sophia.
We bought this cake, so let's have tea. Sophia should come and join us. Kristen, go call her,
Kelly said, summoning Sophia without my permission. Of course, Sophia was studying. Soon, Sophia came down to the living room, looking displeased. Kristen, with a somewhat mean smile, nudges her. People taking general exams have to cram a lot, right? Must be tough. But since your cousin's here to play, you should entertain her. Well, you don't need to study, but I. Unlike the provocative Kristen, Sophia is shy and can't stand up for herself. All I can do is try to end the tea party quickly. I swiftly prepared the tea and hastened them to finish the cake. Meanwhile, Kelly keeps bragging about how brilliant Kristen is and how hard she works at her extracurriculars. Isn't it odd? You're a mother and you hardly ever boast about Sophia. Kelly suddenly said so out of nowhere. But the reason I don't retort with boastful stories is that Sophia has asked me not to. Sophia possesses many virtues that neither I nor Harold have. I always want to counter. But Sophia seems to think there's no need to let Kelly and the rest know. I tolerate and respect Sophia's wishes, responding nonchalantly. Mom always bragged more about you than me, right? It's the same thing. Kelly, looking satisfied, laughed it off.
Yeah, that's right.
This way everything ends as if nothing happened. Yes, our parents also favored Kelly over me, always showing more enthusiasm and expectation for her. They sided with Kelly, who married the elite Adam, all the time. I could tolerate that, but what really got to me was how they constantly compared the grandchildren, always praising Kristen. I was utterly fed up with our parents' attitude. Despite feeling a strong irritation inside, I had to endure it for Sophia's sake, day after day. Then, the children's summer vacation arrived. But with it came turmoil. Kelly's family was preparing for a month-long trip abroad. Since they seemed to be unconcerned with academic studies, we had been hearing about their proud travel plans every week. We thought about taking a trip ourselves, but Sophia was determined. Without Kristen around, I'll be able to study in peace. So, we dropped our plans. However, just before their departure, Kelly's family showed up at our house with a pile of assignments.
Kelly, what is all this?
Summer homework, of course. I faced them, feeling a mix of surprise and bewilderment. The massive amount of assignments covering our table was obviously from Kristen's school.
We're leaving soon, right? These would just be extra luggage, and Kristen doesn't have time for such tedious stuff, so we thought we'd leave it to Sophia. Yeah, it might be a bit tough for you, but give it your best shot.
Sophia and I were both stunned. Kelly and her family wore smug smiles. They didn't even try to hide their condescending looks. But did they realize how absurd their words were?
I have my own assignments, and summer courses too.
For a student facing exams, there's no time to waste on trivial things. Sophia's dream school is highly competitive. She couldn't possibly spare time for Kristen's work on top of her own studies and summer courses. Sophia tried to speak up, but Kelly cut her off.
It's Sophia's last summer in high school too, so I originally said no to this plan, you know. But you guys aren't going anywhere, right? Unlike our Adam, traveling must be hard for you guys.
Kristen joined in with a spiteful look at Sophia.
My school's on high level, so I'm not sure if Sophia can handle it, but it's a good study opportunity, right?
After their carefree remarks, they left the blank assignments and departed for their trip. Adam probably didn't know about this. He's been away for work, leaving before the summer break. Without the fair and serious Adam around, they brazenly dumped this on us. I tried talking to our parents about Kelly's outrageous behavior, but they still sided with her, making me furious.
You need to study anyways, so just do it. Kristen is giving you this chance, which makes her the better child. Sophia's not trying hard enough. Instead of complaining, why doesn't she just study quietly?
My mom said so selfishly. With Dad always agreeing with her, I realized I couldn't expect anything from our parents. Dejected, I gave up on consulting them. Sophia not getting a recommendation was largely due to her reserved nature. Those selected for recommendation slots were active in student council, clubs, and had outstanding grades. Sophia, being shy, always found it challenging. But she was distressed enough to say she could study more in the absence of Kelly's family. I was filled with seething anger. Sophia too was furious. But, unlike my vehement refusal, she reacted differently. To my surprise, she started tackling Kristen's assignments alongside her own studies.
I won't lose. If I can't beat Kristen, I can't beat the exams. Mom, I'll show them I can do it.
That way of thinking never even crossed my mind, but Sophia was determined.
I'll create work that will shut them up.
She was breathing heavily. If Kelly and Kristen returned to find the assignments untouched, they would be troubled. But my concern was how much more they would interfere with Sophia after that. Kelly and her family were looking down on us, thinking, she can't possibly do it. Well, then, we just had to surpass their expectations. Next time we're asked for something, we can just say, we're going to refuse, since we already completed that massive load of summer homework. Impressed by Sophia's positive attitude, I changed my mindset. No longer just enduring, but ready to fight back boldly, that was the only way to win against Kelly and her family. I confessed everything to Harold and persuaded him to join us as a family in tackling the tasks. Sophia and I were more than ready, but Harold, preferring to think it over, called it a day. However, within 2 days, Harold came up with a summer vacation schedule to get through the assignments. He planned not only the homework but also divided household chores among the 3 of us, set days to check progress, and even ensured Sophia had time for her own studies. He thought of everything, including breaks from the study-heavy routine. We were amazed at the precision of his hastily made plan.
Dad, you're actually amazing?
Sophia asked innocently. Harold, with a bashful smile, replied,
It's what I do every day at work.
Though he seemed modest, he was the best leader for Sophia and I. As a result of our family's united effort, we finished the assignments perfectly and ahead of schedule. Sophia was able to focus on her studies, and her mock exam scores improved significantly. I was relieved to see her gaining confidence. Harold, in a great mood, picked up one particular assignment for a final check.
This French essay is outstanding. With this, you and I could go back to college.
The truth is, Harold and I couldn't pursue doctoral studies due to financial reasons. Working on this reminded us of the French literature seminar room where we first met. That was how hard we were tackling the assignments. Studying and researching really was fascinating. So fascinating that it made me worry that Kristen, who considers such things as troublesome, might miss out on this joy. Right before summer vacation ended, Kelly's family returned. They collected the assignments without much inspection, seemingly satisfied that they were just done. Their own stories seemed far more important to them. Then, a few days into the new term, an unusually cheerful Kelly and her family visited. Apparently, some of the assignments were exceptionally good, earning praise from teachers. Kelly and Kristen were proud, despite having no part in the work.
And the French essay. Next week, it will be presented as an outstanding piece in front of everyone. Which reminds me, didn't you and Harold major in French literature or something?
Seems like it didn't lead to great job prospects. Anyways, since it's Kristen's assignment, she'll be the one receiving the accolades. Kelly probably enjoyed thinking we were desperately working on just a child's homework. Kristen could hardly contain her mocking laughter, delighted with the bonus recognition. Later, Kelly sent us a photo of Kristen holding the award certificate, but I just replied, "Congratulations," and deleted the picture. However, trouble arose the following month. In the middle of the night, an enraged Kelly barged into our house. Kristen crying beside her.
Hey Mary! Write that French thing again. You did it once, so you can do it.
What? At this ungodly hour? You're asking for French. As I tried to calm down the frantic Kelly at the front door, Harold and Sophia woke up. The French essay from the summer vacation, which earned Kristen the recognition, was selected for a presentation at the cultural festival. She accepted, thinking it was just a reading, but then was told to submit a new essay for another competition. Kristen struggles with French, even simple compositions are hard for her. So she thought, I'll just have Sophia write it again. And imposed a deadline on Sophia without her consent. But Sophia ignored the new French essay request. The unity during summer vacation had grown into a big confidence boost for her, strengthening her trust in the family. Today, just before the festival, Sophia finally responded to Kristen, who was angrily pressing for the deadline. I didn't write the summer vacation essay, so I don't know. Why don't you ask Mom and the others? Kristen, always hiding behind Kelly, was essentially a timid and mean-spirited girl. She couldn't say anything directly to us. Sophia was unusually cold to her, and in a panic, she thought of consulting Kelly, but unfortunately, she was out at a mom friend's party and didn't get home until very late at night. When Kelly got home, Kristen was waiting and crying, confessing about the essay. Kelly, who had no intention of going to the cultural festival, calling it child's play, was therefore uninformed and shocked. Without caring that it was midnight, she rushed over to our house in a panic. So, it's about that French essay. Make a new one, please. Poor Kristen, she's been deceived by Sophia. It seemed that was the situation. Honestly, I was surprised at Kelly's audacity to leave such a big problem entirely up to us. Sophia, watching Kelly and the others screaming at the front door, remained cool and unimpressed. Anyway, we no longer had a reason to write a new essay. I recommended admitting honestly that she couldn't write.
I can't let her do something so pathetic,
Kelly retorted. But our family firmly continued to refuse. We've done our duty with the summer assignments. We won't do anything more. Enough is enough, or we'll call the police, or Adam, before that. With Harold's words, Kelly suddenly fell silent and took Kristen home with her. A few hours later, our home phone rang. It was our displeased mom back home. Apparently, Kelly had gone crying to her parents right after.
You should write Kristen's essay, Mom said.
But maybe because she was woken up at an unreasonable hour, Mom was complaining differently than usual, not taking Kelly's side.
Seriously, both Kelly and Kristen are the worst. Kelly is always angry, and Kristen is always just tagging along, calling in the middle of the night without even considering the inconvenience of others.
The phone call continued with complaints about Kelly. Mom might be a victim in her own way, but she just seemed to be looking down on Kelly. I quickly refused to help with the essay. We no longer wanted to be involved with them. Later, they somehow managed to finish the French essay using a translation app. Naturally, the quality was miles apart from the summer assignment. The teachers were in an uproar over the poor quality. There were even suggestions that the award-winning assignment might have been plagiarized, and Kristen was questioned.
That essay you submitted for the festival, I've never seen such poor quality. We've discussed it with other teachers, and we think we need to verify if you really wrote your summer vacation essay yourself. I did it, teacher. I really did. I didn't plagiarize, I swear. If that's true, there's no way your essay would be this poorly written. The simple grammar and spelling mistakes are glaring. It's as if it was hastily written in a panic to meet the deadline. For a high school student, anyway, you'll have to explain properly.
After being repeatedly questioned by the teacher without her mother's protection, Kristen finally confessed to having someone else do all her assignments. As a result, her grades were reassessed. The presentation at the cultural festival was, of course, cancelled, and she was given a suspension, with more assignments than those from the summer vacation. Her internal grades were significantly reduced. The details of the assignment commission were also recorded in her report, and it seemed the incident was over. But that was not the end. Following the severe reprimand she received, classmates started confessing problems with her school life. Turns out, Kristen had been targeting poor or timid kids, throwing money at them to forcefully do her assignments. It was revealed that those who couldn't resist because of poverty or those humiliated and laughed at when called out by Kristen's group brought the issue to light. The school tried to settle the matter quietly. To clarify the situation, Kristen underwent several interviews and investigations. This was no mere issue for a report card. The incident led to the cancellation of Kristen's designated school recommendation. Since the second-ranking student took her place, Kristen was forced to take general entrance exams, but she had long lost any time to study at school. The season quickly turned to exam season, and, as a result of her lack of study, she failed everything. On the other hand, since Kelly and her family hardly visited our house after the cultural festival, Sophia, who had diligently studied, got into a university. Her efforts paid off, and she got into the national university she wanted. Our house was wrapped in a celebratory mood, and I made a lavish dinner to celebrate. Kelly, without changing her heart, forced Kristen into a gap year, fearing they would be seen as a family that couldn't send their daughter to college. Kristen, maybe due to her pride, started studying at home but made no progress. The atmosphere in Kelly's house grew worse by the day, with constant parent-child fights, but all they blamed was us. Adam finally became suspicious of Kristen's attitude, which seemed to target Sophia excessively. He was completely unaware of the incident Kristen had caused at school. But once it was revealed, Adam was deeply shocked. I can't believe it. Kristen has grown into a person who looks down on others, flaunting her wealth and just taking what's good. Kelly had baseless absolute confidence in her parenting. Adam trusted her, but it was Kristen who had caused an incident involving the school and several classmates. Desperate, he tried to convince them to at least apologize to our family, but their pride got in the way, and they refused. They wouldn't bow their heads and instead kept trying to put the blame on us. Adam, hearing bad things about us every day, came to despise his wife and child from the bottom of his heart and eventually decided to divorce. Kelly and Kristen, kicked out of their luxurious house, decided to return to their parents' home. Kelly thought they would be welcomed since they brought cute Kristen, but things didn't go as she planned. Our parents, who always supported her, started treating Kristen almost like a jinx because of the multiple problems she caused. And their attitude changed drastically. They had always been harsh on Sophia but now turned to her with kind voices, desperately trying to please her. They even tried to send her expensive gifts. This confused both me and Sophia.
For your successful admission, how about we buy you a luxury brand bag? You've worked so hard, you deserve all the luxury.
Yeah, unlike Kristen, it's okay if it's a bit expensive, tell your grandpa what you want. Their parents praised Sophia and disparaged Kristen. Sophia had long lost her affection for her grandparents and wouldn't be appeased with a brand bag. Neither me nor Sophia wanted to get back at Kelly and her family for what they had done. We didn't want to look down on them, so we refused the gift even if it was for celebration. Why were our parents trying to please us? It seemed to be related to Kelly and her family coming back.
Kelly's back, right? We want you to help her. For the family. You know, we're getting old, and there are household chores.
My mother hesitated on purpose. They couldn't handle Kelly and her family, so they were calling us to take care of them. But we had long lost any desire to see Kelly and her family's faces. Not just me, but my whole family refused and didn't step into my parents' house. Moreover, we had no intention of visiting them anymore. To my parents, who were desperately trying to please us at our front door, Sophia smiled back and said,
"We're moving. We're not coming back to this town, so take care of Kristen and her family. I have university, so please don't bother us anymore. Goodbye."
What? Our parents could only stand there with mouths agape. Yes, we had decided to move altogether after that summer vacation, regardless of the exam results. And so, we cut ties with my parents and Kelly's family and headed to a new town. The ones left behind are reportedly fighting every day at my parents' house. Since the divorce with Adam was finalized, their living standards plummeted, and Kelly, with no face to show to her mom friends, became increasingly reclusive. Without jobs, the mother and the daughter blamed each other in a nasty fight, causing uproar with my parents almost every day. As for us, we are expanding our social circle smoothly at the new place. Sophia studies seriously at the university, immersing herself in seminar research. She has made new friends in addition to her high school ones and looks happy going to the university every day. It was a year of mostly studying, but now Sophia has grown enough to balance both study and play. I hope she goes out more from now on. Although the moving expenses were a bit of a burden, we have enough savings for her to choose her favorite path. The unreasonable task of the summer vacation assignment was an absurd incident, but someday we'll be able to laugh about it, saying, "Remember when that happened?" By then, we'll remember not the malicious faces of Kelly and her family, but the unity and effort of our own family.